Hey there, welcome to Midnight Sleep Crime. I'm here to help you relax tonight. I know many of you use these videos to gently fall asleep. So before you get cozy, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. And let me know where you're watching from, and what time it is there. I always love hearing from you. Now, settle in. Story 1. The first missing person report seemed ordinary. That's why Detective Sarah Hyder almost ignored it. A teenage girl gone from home. No signs of forced entry. No blood. No ransom demand. Just one strange sentence written by the mother in the report. Please find my daughter before my family forgets she existed. The house on Gulmohar Street. The home sat at the end of a quiet suburban road in Lahore. Large garden. White walls. Perfectly normal. Too normal. Detective Sarah noticed that immediately. The kind of house people worked hard to make appear happy. The missing girl's name was Mariam Qureshi, age 17. Disappeared sometime between 11 p.m. and 6 a.m. Sarah knocked on the front door. A woman answered instantly. Pale. Exhausted. Terrified. Mariam's mother. Sarah asked. The woman nodded quickly. But before Sarah could speak again, the woman grabbed her wrist hard. You need to write her name down, she whispered. Sarah frowned. What? Write it down before you come inside. The first red flag. Sarah slowly pulled out her notebook. Wrote. Mariam Qureshi. Only then did the mother let go. Inside the house, everything looked untouched. Dinner plates still in the kitchen. Books scattered in the living room. A half-finished school project on the dining table. Evidence of a girl who clearly existed. And yet, something felt deeply wrong. The family portraits. Sarah's eyes moved to the hallway wall. Dozens of framed family photographs. Vacations. Birthdays. School events. But in every single picture, there was an empty space. Not edited. Not blurred. Just composition gaps. Like someone had once stood there. And reality rearranged itself afterward. The mother notices. The woman saw Sarah staring. She's disappearing from them, she whispered. Sarah turned slowly. What do you mean? The mother's hands trembled violently. Every day there are fewer signs she was ever here. The father doesn't react normally. Mariam's father entered the room moments later. Calm. Too calm. Sarah introduced herself. The man blinked slowly. Confused. Missing daughter, he repeated. The mother stared at him in horror. You already forgot again. The impossible argument. The father rubbed his forehead. No, he said uncertainly. We only have one child. Silence filled the room. The mother began crying instantly. Because upstairs, Mariam's bedroom still existed. Filled with clothes, awards, books, photos with friends, evidence everywhere. And yet her own father no longer remembered her. The notebook test. The mother handed Sarah a notebook. Inside were dozens of handwritten reminders. Mariam is real, Mariam is our daughter, don't trust the forgetting if you forget her voice. Play the recordings, do not remove her room. Some notes were signed by the father himself. The audio recording. The mother played a voice memo from 3 nights earlier. The father's voice filled the room. If I listen to this later and don't remember Mariam, it means it's happening faster. A pause. Heavy breathing. Something in this house is taking her away. The bedroom. Sarah walked upstairs alone. Mariam's room looked perfectly preserved. Bed unmade. Laptop open. Music posters on the wall. A school uniform hanging near the closet. Normal teenage life frozen in place. Until Sarah noticed the photographs. Every photo inside the room was changing. Not physically. Not in front of her eyes. But inconsistently. Some still showed Mariam clearly. Others only showed empty backgrounds. And some seemed to shift every time Sarah looked away. The first missing memory. Sarah picked up a framed picture beside the bed. 3 girls smiling at a birthday party. One of them had obviously been removed somehow. But before Sarah could think further, something strange happened. For one brief second, she forgot why she was holding the picture. Just a second. Then the memory returned instantly. And for the first time, Sarah felt afraid. The closet door. A soft sound came from inside the bedroom closet. Tap. Sarah turned slowly. Another tap. From inside. She approached carefully. Hand near her weapon. The closet door creaked open slightly on its own, and from the darkness inside, a girl's voice whispered, "Please don't let them forget me again." Sarah pulled the closet door open fully. Empty. No one inside, but scratched into the wood on the interior wall, over and over again, were the same desperate words. "I was here. I was here." Hundreds of times, as if someone had been trying to leave proof of their own existence before reality erased it completely. Some people disappear physically, but the worst cases are the ones where the world itself starts deleting every memory they ever existed at all. Detective Sarah Hyder didn't sleep that night. Not because of the missing girl. Because of the moment she forgot. Just 1 second. A blank space in her mind while holding Mariam's photograph. But that was enough. Experienced detectives trusted instincts. And Sarah's instincts told her something impossible was happening inside the Qureshi house. The evidence board. The next morning, Sarah pinned Mariam's information across her office wall. Photos, school records, phone logs, witness statements, normal investigative procedure, until she returned from getting coffee. One photograph was gone. Not fallen, not misplaced. Gone. The pushpin still remained in the board, but the picture itself had vanished. The missing name. Sarah checked her notes immediately. Half the pages no longer contained Mariam's name. Blank spaces remained where the writing should have been, as if the ink itself had forgotten her. The first official problem. When Sarah requested national ID records, the system returned an error. No match found. School registration still existed. Medical records partially remained, but government identity databases showed nothing. No birth certificate. No passport. No legal existence. The mother calls again. At 11:42 a.m., Mariam's mother called Sarah in tears. "My husband removed her bedroom door." Sarah frowned immediately. "What?" "He says the room was always empty." Back to the house. When Sarah arrived, workers were already carrying furniture downstairs. Mariam's father supervised calmly, completely emotionless. Sarah stepped directly in front of him. "Stop this." The father looked genuinely confused. "Detective, this room hasn't been used in years." The room changes again. Sarah ran upstairs and froze in the doorway. The bedroom was different now. Not destroyed. Not cleaned. Reduced. The posters were gone. Books missing. Clothes disappeared from the closet. Even the bed looked smaller somehow, as if reality itself was compressing evidence of Mariam's existence. The closet remains, but the closet door was still closed. Sarah approached carefully, opened it again. Empty, except for more scratches on the inside walls. Fresh ones. New sentences added beneath the others. "Mom forgot first. Dad was easier. Don't stay too long. The room hates memories." Sarah's pulse quickened, because the scratches looked recent. Very recent. The camera test. Sarah immediately set up a police camera inside the room. Continuous recording. Motion detection enabled. If reality was changing, she needed proof. The footage. 3 hours later, she reviewed the recording. At first, nothing unusual. Empty room. Silent hallway. Normal. Then at 2:13 p.m., the image distorted briefly. Not glitching. More like focus shifting between two versions of the same room. For less than a second, the bedroom appeared fully restored. Posters back. Furniture restored. Someone sitting on the bed. A teenage girl. Mariam. Then the image snapped back. Empty again. The most disturbing detail. Sarah replayed the footage frame by frame. Mariam had been staring directly into the camera, and at the exact moment the distortion ended, she mouthed 3 words silently. "It sees you." The neighbor's statement. Sarah interviewed neighbors that evening. Most remembered the Qureshi family having 1 child. But one elderly woman hesitated. "There used to be laughter from upstairs," she whispered. Sarah leaned closer. "Used to?" The woman nodded slowly. "Now when I try remembering the girl." Her eyes unfocused briefly. "It hurts." The house blueprint. Sarah obtained the original architectural plans that night. Everything matched normally, except for one inconsistency. Mariam's bedroom dimensions were wrong. From outside, the room should have been larger. Much larger. There was hidden space behind the closet wall. Breaking the wall. At midnight, Sarah returned alone, crowbar in hand, flashlight trembling slightly. She entered the shrinking bedroom. The air felt colder now, heavier, almost aware. Then she forced the closet wall open. Behind it, another room existed. The hidden room. Dust-covered, windowless, old, not part of the original house design. The walls were covered entirely in writing. Thousands of sentences layered over each other. Names, dates, pleading messages, and every sentence shared one terrifying theme. People begging not to be forgotten. The photographs on the floor. Hundreds of family photographs littered the hidden room. Different families, different decades. But in every photo, someone was missing. An empty space where a person should have been. The recording device. In the center of the room sat an old cassette recorder, still running. Sarah pressed play. Static filled the room first, then a terrified male voice. If you're hearing this, the house already knows you remember. Heavy breathing. The room doesn't take bodies. A long pause. It takes recognition. The final discovery. Sarah slowly turned the flashlight toward the far wall, and saw fresh writing appearing. Not quickly, not dramatically, letter by letter, as if invisible fingers scratched into the paint in real time. The message completed itself slowly. Sarah Hyder remembers too much. Then beneath it, another sentence began carving itself into the wall. She will be next. The hidden room door slammed shut behind her. Darkness swallowed the space instantly, and from somewhere inside the walls, a teenage girl began crying softly. Not nearby, not distant, everywhere. Some houses keep memories alive, but the worst ones survive by feeding on the people who still remember what was stolen from them. The hidden room didn't open for 7 minutes. Sarah counted every second, because panic made time measurable. She pounded against the door. No response. No sound from the rest of the house. Only the crying inside the walls. Soft, constant, and slowly, other voices joined it. The voices know her name. At first the whispers were impossible to understand. Then one became clear. A little boy's voice. Sarah. Her blood ran cold. Another voice followed. An older woman. You still remember us? The door finally opens. Without warning, the hidden room door creaked open by itself. The bedroom outside looked wrong again. Smaller than before. The bed had vanished completely now. Most of the walls were blank. And the family photographs downstairs were changing faster. Mariam's mother forgets again. Sarah rushed downstairs. Mariam's mother sat silently at the dining table, confused, disoriented. When Sarah said Mariam's name, the woman flinched painfully, like hearing something forbidden, then whispered, I know I lost someone. Tears rolled down her face instantly. But I can't remember who. The father has fully forgotten. Mariam's father no longer recognized the bedroom at all. That room's always been storage, he insisted. Sarah grabbed a framed school certificate from the table. Mariam Qureshi, she read aloud. The father stared at the certificate blankly. Then something horrifying happened. The ink on the paper faded, right in front of them, until the certificate became blank. The investigation expands. Sarah knew immediately this wasn't isolated. She searched older police archives late into the night. Missing persons, unsolved disappearances, families reporting memory inconsistencies. At first the connections seemed random. Then a pattern emerged. The forgotten cases. Over 30 years. Multiple families reported impossible grief. Statements like, someone used to live here. There should be another face in this picture. I can feel that I lost a child. Please help me remember their name. Most cases were dismissed as psychological trauma, but every family shared one thing. At some point, they had all lived in the same house. The house history. The Qureshi home was older than it looked. Much older, renovated repeatedly, ownership transferred dozens of times. And in every decade, someone disappeared. Not physically at first, conceptually. The woman in the archive. One recorded interview from 1998 disturbed Sarah most. An elderly woman interviewed after her grandson vanished. The transcript read, "The house eats people slowly." Another line, First it removes photographs. Then memories. Final statement. When nobody remembers you, the room keeps what's left. Sarah begins forgetting small things. At 2:30 a.m., Sarah noticed the first symptom in herself. She opened her notebook, saw Mariam's name, and for one terrifying second, couldn't remember who Mariam was. Then it returned, but weaker, like a memory fighting to survive. The recording rule. Sarah immediately began recording voice memos to herself. Her name is Mariam Qureshi. She is real. She disappeared from the house on Golmohar Street. A pause. The house causes memory erosion. She replayed the recording twice, just to make sure she still understood it. The families start contacting her. After reopening archived cases, families began calling non-stop. People from across Lahore, some elderly, some barely holding themselves together emotionally, all saying variations of the same thing. I think someone was taken from us. But most couldn't provide names, or faces, or exact memories. Only absence. The shared nightmare. Multiple families described identical dreams. A hidden room behind a closet wall. Children scratching messages into wood. Voices begging not to be forgotten. And always, a locked door at the end of the room. A door nobody remembered opening. The first survivor. One man finally agreed to meet Sarah in person. 53 years old. Former resident of the house during childhood. His hands shook constantly during the interview. My sister disappeared there, he whispered. Sarah leaned forward immediately. You remember her? The man closed his eyes tightly, struggling. Only when I'm inside the house. The most important clue yet. The man pulled an old photograph from his wallet. 3 children standing in front of the house. But unlike the others, this photo still showed the missing child clearly. A little girl smiling at the camera. On the back of the photo, written in faded ink, were 5 words. Don't let the room see you. The survivor's breakdown. The man suddenly grabbed Sarah's arm desperately. It watches people who remember, he whispered. Sarah froze. What watches? The man stared toward the dark window behind her, and answered with genuine terror. The thing living behind the missing faces. Sarah returned to the hidden room one final time before dawn. The writings on the wall had multiplied again. Thousands more desperate messages layered over each other. But one section of the wall had been cleared completely. Fresh empty paint. And in the center, a single sentence slowly appeared by invisible scratching. We remember you now, Sarah. Then beneath it, another line carved itself deeper into the wall. Soon nobody else will. The cruelest way to destroy a person isn't killing them. It's making the world forget they were ever loved enough to exist at all. Detective Sarah Haider stopped going home. Not because she feared the house on Golmohar Street. Because she feared forgetting why she feared it. By the 4th day of the investigation, memory itself had become unreliable. Every morning she woke with gaps. Tiny at first. A missing conversation. A forgotten phone call. The inability to remember what Mariam's voice sounded like. And each loss felt deliberate. The emergency system. Sarah covered her apartment walls with notes. Mariam is real. The house erases people. Trust recordings. Not memorito. Not destroy the photos if you forget. Return to the hidden room. Every hour, she forced herself to reread them aloud. Because now, sometimes the notes looked meaningless for a few seconds before understanding returned. The families are getting worse. Calls from affected families became more disturbing overnight. One mother reported waking up beside a child's bedroom she didn't recognize. A husband found wedding photos containing a woman he couldn't name. An old man called police crying because he kept hearing laughter in a house he swore he lived in alone. The forgetting was spreading. Not through infection, through connection. Anyone who strongly remembered someone taken by the house became vulnerable. The survivor returns. The former resident visited Sarah again after midnight. This time visibly terrified. I remembered something else, he whispered. He handed her an old brass key. Small, blackened with age. Where did you get this? Sarah asked. The man swallowed hard. From the locked door. Silence. The one behind the hidden room. The door was always there. Sarah returned immediately to the house. Alone again. The Qureshi family no longer resisted her entering. Mostly because they barely remembered why police were involved anymore. Miriam's mother stared at Sarah politely like a stranger, and when Sarah asked about her daughter, the woman only looked confused. What daughter? The hidden room has changed again. Behind the closet wall, the secret room looked larger now. Impossible, but undeniable. The writings covered every inch of the walls. Some fresh, some decades old. Finger marks scratched into paint. Nail marks dug deep into wood. Evidence of people desperately trying to leave proof behind before being erased. And at the far end of the room, Sarah finally saw it clearly. The door that wasn't there before. Heavy, dark wooden surface. No handle on the outside. And unlike the rest of the room, it looked ancient. Far older than the house itself. The brass key fit perfectly. The voice behind the door. Before Sarah could turn the key, someone knocked softly from the other side. 3 slow taps. Then silence. A child's voice whispered faintly, "Please don't leave us here." Sarah's hands trembled. Another voice joined it. Older this time. Male. It knows when you open the door. Then dozens more voices layered together. Begging. Crying. Warning her not to enter. Warning her not to leave. The door opens anyway. Sarah turned the key. The lock clicked immediately. The door creaked inward. Cold air rushed out. Not stale air. Not trapped air. Outside air. Like the doorway connected to somewhere much larger than the room itself. The hallway beyond. Sarah stepped through slowly, flashlight raised, and froze instantly. The space beyond wasn't another room. It was an endless hallway. Narrow, dimly lit, covered in hundreds of family photographs hanging along both walls. Thousands maybe, stretching into darkness too far to see. The missing faces. Sarah approached the nearest photograph carefully. A family portrait from the 1980s. Parents smiling. 2 children visible. But there was empty space between them. Clearly shaped like another child should have been standing there. The next photo showed a wedding party. Another missing figure. Every photograph in the hallway had someone erased from it. The names underneath. Beneath each frame. A small brass plate. Some still readable. Adil Ramansano Iqbal Yusuf Karim Mariam Qureshi. Thousands of names. The hallway is alive. As Sarah moved deeper, the photographs changed subtly. Faces shifting. People disappearing. New empty spaces forming. The hallway wasn't preserving victims. It was actively processing them. The figure at the end. Far down the corridor. Someone stood motionless beneath a flickering light. Tall. Thin. Impossible to identify clearly. But as Sarah stared, the figure slowly tilted its head, and every photograph on the walls shifted simultaneously. Thousands of missing faces disappearing all at once. The real purpose of the house. Sarah finally understood. The house wasn't haunted. It was feeding. Not on bodies. Not on souls. On recognition. Memory. Human connection itself. Every forgotten person became absorbed into whatever existed beyond the hidden door. The figure speaks. The thing at the end of the hallway finally moved. One slow step forward, and spoke in dozens of overlapping voices at once. People survive because they are remembered. Another step. We survive by taking that away. The hallway lights flickered violently. And suddenly, Sarah saw someone standing inside one of the photographs nearby. Miriam. Alive. Terrified. Pressing her hands against the inside of the picture frame like glass. Trying to scream. But no sound came out. Then the image faded slowly. As if the hallway itself was beginning to forget her again. Death ends a life once. But being forgotten destroys a person over and over until even reality can no longer remember what was stolen. Miriam was still moving inside the frame. Barely. Her hands slammed soundlessly against the glass surface of the photograph. Eyes wide with panic. Mouth screaming words Sarah couldn't hear. Then the image flickered. For one horrifying second, Miriam vanished from the picture completely. Only empty space remained beside her family. Then she returned again. Weaker. Less clear. Like the hallway itself was struggling to remember her existence. Sarah touches the photograph. The instant her fingers touched the frame, the hallway changed. Noise exploded inside her head. Not voices. Memories. Hundreds of them. Thousands. Birthdays. School graduations. Family dinners. Children laughing. Parents crying. People hugging loved ones whose faces no longer existed. Fragments of stolen lives trapped inside the corridor. Sarah staggered backward, nearly collapsing. And among the chaos, one memory became clear. Mariam's last night. Mariam sitting alone in her bedroom, typing desperately into her phone, crying, terrified, because her mother had forgotten her name that evening for the first time. Then, a soft knock from inside the closet wall. Not outside, inside. Mariam slowly approached it, and heard a voice whisper, "If everyone forgets you, you can still exist here." The figure gets closer. Sarah looked up sharply. The tall figure at the far end of the hallway had moved nearer. Much nearer. Still impossible to see clearly. Its shape kept shifting subtly. Sometimes male. Sometimes female. Sometimes appearing as multiple overlapping silhouettes. Like identity itself behaved differently around it. The hallway remembers everyone. The entity ran its fingers softly along the wall of photographs. And every frame reacted. People inside them moved slightly, blinking, turning their heads, trying desperately to be noticed. Sarah realized with horror. The missing weren't dead. Not completely. They were suspended in partial existence. Trapped inside collective forgotten memory. The entity explains itself. "You call this disappearance," the overlapping voices whispered. "Another step closer. But forgetting is simply another form of burial." Sarah forced herself to speak. "What are you?" The figure paused. Then thousands of whispers answered together. "We are what remains when nobody remembers." The original victim. The hallway lights dimmed suddenly, and a new photograph slid slowly out from the wall by itself, landing at Sarah's feet. Black and white. Very old. A family standing outside a farmhouse sometime in the 1920s. Except one figure had not been erased fully. A tall shadow still remained faintly visible between the family members. The same shape standing in the hallway now. The first forgotten person. Sarah stared at the photo carefully. The brass plate beneath it read, "Unknown child, 1921. No name. No records. No surviving memory. Only absence." How the entity was born. The whispers filled the corridor again. He was forgotten first. The walls trembled softly. No grave. No records. No memory. Another pause. And something remained after the forgetting. The hunger. Sarah finally understood the true horror. The entity inside the hallway had once been human. A child erased so completely by time and neglect. That identity itself collapsed into something else. Something that survived by consuming recognition from others. Every forgotten victim strengthened it. Every erased memory fed it. Mariam is slipping away faster. Sarah turned back toward Mariam's photograph. The girl was fading now. Facial features softening. Edges dissolving. Soon even Sarah might not remember what she looked like. The rules of the hallway. The entity spoke again. As long as one person remembers. The hallway lights flickered. They remained difficult to keep. A pause. But eventually, every photograph along the corridor shifted slightly. Everyone gets tired of remembering. The survivors upstairs. Sarah suddenly realized why families forgot gradually. The entity didn't erase memories instantly. It exhausted them, slowly weakening emotional connections until the mind surrendered naturally. Grief became confusion. Confusion became absence. And absence became food. Sarah finds the impossible photograph. Further down the corridor, one frame stopped her completely. A police academy graduation photo. Her own class. And beside her, an empty space. Someone missing. Someone Sarah suddenly realized she should remember. But couldn't. The forgotten partner. Pain exploded behind her eyes. Fragments surfaced briefly. Laughing during training, sharing coffee during night shifts, a name beginning with A. Then gone again. The hallway had already taken someone from her before. And she never noticed. The entity notices her fear. The tall figure smiled for the first time. Not cruelly. Sadly. "You already lost people to us." Another step forward. "You simply survived long enough to stop noticing." The hallway lights suddenly turned red. Every photograph on both walls began shaking violently. And from inside hundreds of frames, hands started pressing outward against the glass. Children. Adults. Entire families. All trapped. all trying desperately to escape before they were forgotten completely. Then every trapped face turned towards Sarah simultaneously, and screamed without sound, the dead fear being buried. But the forgotten fear something worse, the moment nobody alive remains capable of remembering they ever needed saving at all. The screaming without sound followed Sarah even after she ran. She stumbled back through the endless hallway of photographs, past vanished families, past shifting faces, past thousands of trapped people slowly dissolving into forgotten memory. And behind her, the entity walked calmly, never rushing, because it didn't need to. The door slammed shut. Sarah burst through the hidden door behind the closet wall. The moment she crossed back into the room, the hallway vanished. Silence, darkness, dust-covered walls, as if none of it had existed. Except, the brass key remained in her hand. Still cold, still real. The house is different again. Sarah stepped into Mariam's bedroom, and immediately froze. The room was nearly empty now. No posters, no books, no school uniform. Only faint rectangular discolorations on the walls where objects used to hang. Evidence of erased existence. The mother has forgotten completely. Downstairs, Mariam's mother smiled politely at Sarah. "Can I help you?" No recognition, no grief, no memory of a missing daughter. Sarah's chest tightened. "You called the police 3 days ago," she said carefully. The woman frowned politely. "I think you have the wrong house." The family portrait. Sarah grabbed a framed family photograph from the hallway wall. Now it showed only the parents. No empty space anymore. No sign a child had ever existed. The hallway itself had corrected. Sarah begins losing time. Back at the station, Sarah found new gaps in her memory. She discovered unfinished reports in her own handwriting she didn't remember writing. Voice recordings she didn't remember making. One recording terrified her most. Her own voice speaking frantically. "If you forget Detective Aham Khan again, play this immediately." Sarah stopped breathing for a second. Who was Aham Khan? The forgotten detective. She searched police databases immediately. Nothing. No active officer. No retired detective. No academy records. And yet, his name felt familiar. Painfully familiar. The hidden photograph. Inside her desk drawer, beneath stacks of files, Sarah found an old printed photograph. Police academy graduation. Her standing beside another detective. A man. Smiling. The same empty space she saw in the hallway photo earlier. Except now, for a brief second, his face appeared clearly. Dark hair. Thin beard. Warm eyes. Then the image blurred again. Like reality corrected itself the moment she noticed. The voice message, taped to the back of the photograph. A small USB drive. Sarah plugged it into her laptop immediately. A video recording opened. A detective appeared on screen. The same man from the photograph. Detective Aham Khan. He looked exhausted, terrified, and directly into the camera, he said, "Sarah, if you're watching this, it already took me." Sarah watches in horror. Aham continued speaking rapidly. "The house doesn't choose randomly." Static flickered across the video briefly. "It targets people who investigate it." Another glitch. The more you remember the victims. His face distorted for half a second. The more the hallway begins remembering you back. The previous investigation. Sarah searched her own memory desperately. Fragments surfaced. Late-night case files, coffee cups in interrogation rooms, arguments with a hambeth of them standing outside the Qureshi house months earlier. Then the memories vanished again. She already investigated this case. Sarah realized the impossible truth. This wasn't her first time investigating the house. The hallway had already erased her partner, and then erased her memory of him. The recording continues. Aham leaned closer to the camera now, voice shaking. "If I disappear completely." A long pause. "Don't go through the hidden door again." Sarah whispered softly, "No." But the recording hadn't finished. The most important warning. Aham's expression darkened. The thing in the hallway isn't the real danger. Static consumed the screen briefly. Then his face returned. Closer now, almost whispering. Something else lives behind the photographs. The video corrupts. The footage suddenly distorted violently. Aham turned toward something off camera. Terrified. Then the screen filled with static, and through the distortion, Sarah heard overlapping whispers saying her name. The video ended abruptly. The final memory returns. A single memory slammed back into Sarah's mind. Aham standing in the hidden hallway months earlier, looking at a photograph, then turning toward her in horror, and saying, "Don't let it learn your face." Sarah looked back at the academy photograph one last time. This time, Aham's face was completely gone again. Not blurred, not faded, gone. Only empty space remained beside her. And beneath the photo, new handwriting slowly appeared across the paper in deep scratching lines. Sarah Haider is next to be forgotten. Then another line carved itself underneath. This time there will be nobody left to remember her. The most terrifying victims aren't the people who disappear. They are the ones erased so completely that even the people who loved them can no longer remember why losing them once destroyed their lives. Detective Sarah Haider woke up in her car at 4:17 a.m. She didn't remember falling asleep, didn't remember leaving the station, didn't even remember driving. For several long seconds, she forgot her own name. Then panic crashed through her chest. She grabbed the notebook taped to the dashboard immediately. The first page read, "You are Detective Sarah Haider. Read everything before you move." The emergency instructions. Dozens of pages followed, all written in her handwriting. The house erases people slowly. Your partner was named Aham Khan. If you forget Mariam, replay the recordings. Do not trust missing memories. The hallway is beginning to recognize you never looked too long at your own photographs. Sarah's hands shook violently, because she didn't remember writing any of it. The first personal loss. Her phone rang. Caller ID. Mother. Sarah answered immediately. Her mother sounded confused, distant. "Beta, where are you working these days again?" Sarah froze. Her mother laughed nervously. "I'm sorry, my memory's terrible lately." But Sarah knew better. The forgetting had started spreading into her life. The apartment changes. When Sarah returned home, something was wrong immediately. The apartment looked less lived in. A framed childhood photo had vanished from the shelf. Half her clothes were missing from the closet. And worst of all, the nameplate outside her apartment door only read, "Detective." Her name had disappeared. The police station forgets her too. At work, officers greeted her strangely. Polite, uncertain. One young constable stopped her near the archive room. "Sorry, who are you here to see?" Sarah stared at him. "I work here." The constable frowned apologetically. "I've never seen you before." Official records begin collapsing. Her employee file was missing. Her login credentials failed. Her personnel records returned corrupted errors. Only physical evidence still connected her to reality. Notebooks, recordings, printed photographs, handwritten reminders. Digital memory vanished first. The hallway is expanding. That night, Sarah returned to the hidden room again. Against every warning, against every instinct. Because now it wasn't just about Mariam. It was happening to her. The hidden hallway beyond the door had changed. It was larger now, wider, longer, and many of the photographs on the walls now contained her. Sarah's missing moments. One frame showed Sarah at age 12, standing beside an empty space where someone should have been. Another showed police academy graduation. Aham missing again. Another showed Sarah sitting alone at a birthday party. Except the decorations clearly suggested two people had once been there. The hallway had been feeding on her life for years. The entity is waiting closer now. The tall figure stood much nearer than before. Only 30 feet away. Still shifting between forms. Still impossible to focus on directly. And now, some of its facial features resembled Sarah's. The forgotten victims speak. From inside the photographs, voices whispered softly as she passed. "Don't stop remembering. Please. It hurts when they forget." Some faces were barely human now. Edges fading. Eyes disappearing. Too forgotten to remain stable. Mariam appears again. Near the center of the hallway, Mariam suddenly appeared inside a photograph frame. Much clearer this time. She slammed both hands against the glass desperately. And this time, Sarah could hear her. "It's using your memories." The hallway lights flickered violently. Mariam continued screaming. "The more you remember us, the more it learns who you are." The real feeding process. Sarah stopped walking, and finally understood. The entity didn't simply consume forgotten people. It used human memory like a bridge. Every act of remembering connected victims to the hallway, but also connected the hallway back to the person remembering. Investigation itself spread the infection. Aham appears. Then Sa'a saw something impossible. At the far wall, inside a fading photograph, stood Detective Aham Khan. Alive. Weak. Barely visible. But alive. The forgotten detective speaks. Aham looked directly at her through the frame, and whispered, "You still have time." Sa'a rushed toward the photograph, but the image distorted violently. Aham's face flickered between clarity and disappearance. "They are not dead," he said quickly. A pause. "They are stored." "Stored where?" Sa'a pressed her hand against the glass. "Where?" Aham looked terrified now, then slowly pointed behind her, toward the entity, the thing behind the hallway. The lights went dark for 1 second, and in that instant, Sa'a saw beyond the tall figure, something enormous moving behind the corridor itself. Not inside it, behind it, like the hallway was only a surface layer covering something vastly larger, something alive, and covered in faces. The entity finally reveals its purpose. The overlapping voices echoed through the hallway again. "We preserve what humanity abandons. Another step closer. Every forgotten person still exists within us." A pause. "You call it horror because you fear being left behind too." Sa'a notices her own photograph. Then she saw it. A new frame hanging near the end of the corridor. Still developing. Still incomplete. A photograph of her apartment. And inside it, Sa'a herself was beginning to fade. The hallway lights turned red again. Every photograph on the walls slowly rotated towards Sa'a simultaneously. Thousands of forgotten faces staring directly at her now. And together, all of them whispered the same sentence. "Please don't become one of us." Then Sa'a's own photograph flickered, and one side of her face disappeared from the image completely. People fear dying alone. But the true nightmare is surviving just long enough to watch the world slowly lose every memory that proves you were ever real at all. Sa'a tore her own photograph off the wall. The frame shattered against the hallway floor. Glass exploded across the corridor. For one brief second, her missing reflection returned inside the image, then vanished again. The hallway reacts immediately. Every light overhead flickered violently. The walls trembled. Photographs rattled in their frames. The entity stopped walking, and for the first time, its overlapping voices sounded angry. "That image belongs to us now." Sa'a refuses to let go. She grabbed the damaged photograph from the floor, held it tightly against her chest, because already, she could feel something terrifying happening. She was forgetting her own childhood. Tiny details disappearing first. Favorite songs, teacher names, birthday memories. The hallway wasn't just erasing her existence from others. It was consuming her internally too. Aham tries to warn her. Inside the fading frame nearby, Aham pounded against the glass. "Sa'a, listen carefully." The photograph containing him flickered rapidly, his face breaking apart around the edges. "The hallway isn't the prison." Sa'a stared at him. "What?" Aham pointed downward. "The photographs are doors. The real structure." The corridor shook again, and suddenly, Sa'a understood something impossible. The endless hallway wasn't a physical place. It was a storage system, an archive built from memory itself. Every photograph connected to somewhere deeper, somewhere all forgotten people were being held. The entity begins changing shape. The tall figure stepped closer, closer than ever before, and now its appearance stabilized briefly. Not male, not female, a patchwork of stolen identity. Different eyes, different mouths, different ages shifting beneath translucent skin. Thousands of forgotten people layered together into one surviving thing. The original child is gone. Sa'a finally realized the terrible truth. The forgotten child from 1921 no longer existed as an individual. After decades feeding on erased memories, it had become a collective organism made from abandoned identities. "Why it keeps people. You could let them go," Sa'a whispered. The entity tilted its head, and leave them to complete erasure. The hallway dimmed slightly. Human memory is temporary. Another step closer. We are the only reason forgotten people continue existing at all. The moral horror. Sa'a's stomach tightened. because part of the entity's logic made horrifying sense. Without the hallway, forgotten victims might truly vanish forever. But inside it, they existed in endless trapped half-life. Aware, lonely, unable to leave. Mariam's stats disappearing completely. Mariam's photograph flickered violently now. Large sections of her body gone. Face fading. Voice weaker. Sarah, she whispered desperately. It's getting harder to remember myself. The final archive door. Near the end of the corridor, Sarah noticed a massive black door she hadn't seen before. Far larger than the others. Covered in thousands of engraved names. Some scratched out completely, others partially faded. Aham pointed toward it immediately. That's where the fully forgotten go. Sarah's blood ran cold. What happens to them? Aham didn't answer immediately. Because he didn't need to. The muffled screaming behind the door answered for him. The place beyond memory. The entity spoke softly now. Almost gently. When the last living memory disappears. The black door creaked slightly. Identity collapses completely. Sarah stepped backward instinctively. And then, the overlapping whispers filled the corridor. Then they become part of us. Sarah remembers one last thing. Suddenly, a forgotten memory slammed back into her mind. Aham standing in the hallway months earlier. Crying. Terrified. Because he had seen his own photograph fading. And Sarah had promised him she would remember. But she forgot anyway. Not by choice. The hallway took him. And then took her memory of loving him enough to search. The entity offers her a choice. The shifting figure stopped only a few feet away now. And extended one hand toward her. You can join them willingly. The photographs around the hallway pulsed softly. Remain remembered here forever. A pause. Or return upstairs, and disappear completely when the final memory dies. The worst part. Sarah realized the entity wasn't threatening her. It genuinely believed it was preserving people. Saving them from true non-existence. And perhaps, after becoming what it was, that belief had become true. The giant black door at the end of the hallway suddenly groaned open a few inches. Darkness spilled through the gap. Not empty darkness. Movement. Thousands of faces shifting together inside an endless living mass of forgotten identities. And among them, Sarah briefly saw herself. Already waiting inside. Smiling sadly. As if one version of her had already been consumed long ago. The cruelest monsters are not the ones that destroy people. They are the ones that convince their victims that being trapped forever is kinder than being forgotten forever instead. Sarah ran. Not away from the entity. Away from the black door. Because the moment it opened, something inside her mind began collapsing. Names vanished first. Then faces. Then emotions attached to memories she had carried her entire life. She nearly forgot her father's voice before forcing herself to remember it aloud. The escape from the hallway. Sarah slammed through the hidden door behind the closet wall. Fell hard onto the bedroom floor. Gasping for breath. The hidden room behind her sealed instantly. Silent again. But something came back with her. Not physically. Mentally. The hallway now existed partially inside her memory. And she could feel it watching. The house is almost empty. The Qureshi home no longer felt lived in. Furniture missing. Family photographs removed entirely. Half the rooms abandoned. As if the house itself was slowly consuming its own history. Mariam's mother sat alone in the kitchen. Expression blank. When Sarah asked her name, the woman hesitated. Even she was beginning to forget herself. The final stage. Sarah finally understood the full process. The hallway didn't simply erase individual victims. It consumed entire emotional networks. Families. Friendships. Relationships. Once enough memories collapsed. People stopped existing socially. Then historically. Then psychologically. And finally, completely. Sarah is running out of anchors. Back at her apartment, half the reminder notes on her walls no longer made sense. Some names felt unfamiliar. Some handwriting looked like a stranger's. One note terrified her most. If you find this after forgetting yourself, trust Aham. Sarah stared at the sentence for a long time, trying desperately to remember why it mattered. The recordings become essential. She began recording herself constantly now. Voice memos every hour. Video journals every night. My name is Sarah Haider. I am investigating a memory-based entity. The victims are trapped inside a hallway behind the house. Then a pause. If I stop recognizing this recording. Her voice trembled. It means I'm almost gone. The last remaining witness. The elderly neighbor from Gulmoha Street called unexpectedly after midnight. Terrified. Crying. I remember the girl again, she whispered. Sarah rushed there immediately. The old woman opened the door, shaking violently. And for the first time, she said the name clearly. Mariam. The importance of a single memory. The moment the name was spoken, the lights inside the house flickered. Somewhere inside the walls, something moved angrily. Sarah realized the horrifying truth. As long as even one living person genuinely remembered Mariam, the hallway couldn't fully absorb her. Memory was resistance. The entity fights back. The old woman suddenly clutched her head in pain. I can't hold on to it, she cried. Blood trickled slowly from her nose. It keeps taking her away from me. Remembering hurts. The hallway was fighting actively now. Human memory wasn't designed to resist deliberate erasure. The harder victims were remembered, the more psychological pressure the entity applied. Exhaustion, confusion, pain, hallucinations. Eventually, most people surrendered naturally just to escape the strain. Sarah makes a decision. She finally understood what had to happen. Not destroy the hallway. That might erase every trapped victim forever. Instead, someone had to remain outside it. Someone who continued remembering. A living anchor. Aham's final recording. Back at the station archives, Sarah discovered one final hidden video file from Aham. Timestamped only hours before his disappearance. His face looked exhausted beyond recognition. But calm. If you found this, he whispered. Then I failed. A long silence. The hallway survives because humans forget naturally. Another pause. But memory can also imprison it. Sarah leaned closer. What do you mean? She whispered unconsciously. The weakness of the hallway. Aham answered as if hearing her. It needs people to disappear quietly. Static flickered. If enough people remember the victims simultaneously. His image distorted badly now. The hallway overloads. The final plan. Sarah's pulse quickened. The entity stored forgotten people through isolation. Separation. Fragmented grief. But collective remembrance might destabilize the system. The victims needed to be remembered publicly. Massively. Continuously. The problem. There was one terrible issue. To expose the truth. Sarah would need people to learn about the hallway. Remember the missing. Speak their names. Which also meant the hallway would begin noticing all of them too. The last remaining memory of Aham. The recording neared its end. Aham smiled faintly. Sadness in his eyes. If you still remember me. His face began fading even as the video played. Thank you. Then the recording corrupted permanently. Sarah notices something horrifying. She looked down at the academy photograph again. This time, her own face was beginning to blur beside the empty space where Aham used to stand. She was running out of time. At dawn, Sarah stood outside the Qureshi house holding a megaphone. Neighbors slowly gathered nearby, confused, watching, and for the first time publicly. Sarah spoke every stolen name she had recovered from the hallway walls. Mariam Qureshi, Adil Rahman, Sano Iqbal, Yusuf Karim. The house trembled violently. Windows cracked, lights flickered blood red, and from somewhere deep behind the walls, thousands of voices screamed in sudden recognition. Because after decades hidden in silence, the forgotten were finally being remembered again. The only thing more powerful than fear is memory. Because even monsters built from forgetting begin to starve when the world finally refuses to let the lost disappear quietly anymore. The screaming inside the walls grew louder with every name Sarah spoke. Not angry. Desperate. The house shook violently. Paint cracked across the ceilings. Windows shattered outward into the street. And all around Gulmoha Street. People stopped walking. Stopped talking. Stopped ignoring the feeling that something had always been missing from their lives. The names return. Sarah kept reading from the recovered list. Voice raw. Hands trembling. Amina Yusuf. Bilal Karim. Farah Ali. Mariam Qureshi. Each name hit the house like a physical blow. Because every spoken memory weakened the hallway's control. The neighbors begin remembering. An elderly man in the crowd suddenly burst into tears. "My brother," he whispered. Everyone turned toward him. "They took my brother." A woman nearby collapsed, crying moments later. "My daughter used to play here." More memories surfaced. Not fully, not cleanly. Fragments. Pain. Absence. But enough. The house starts breaking apart. The hidden room behind the closet wall finally tore open on its own. Not slowly. Violently. The hallway beyond became visible from the street itself now. An endless corridor of photographs stretching impossibly deep beneath reality. And every photograph inside it began flickering uncontrollably. The forgotten fight back. Faces trapped inside the pictures started moving clearly now. Children screaming. Parents crying. Victims pounding against the glass. Because for the first time in decades, people outside still remembered them strongly enough to resist the erasure. The entity emerges. The tall figure stepped out from the hallway, into the real world, and now everyone could see it. The crowd gasped collectively, not because the entity looked monstrous, because it looked familiar. Its shifting face contained pieces of everyone they had forgotten. Lost friends, dead relatives, missing children, old lovers, fragments of abandoned memory stitched together into one impossible being. The entity speaks publicly. Its overlapping voices echoed across the street. "You abandoned them first." The crowd froze. Another step forward. Humanity forgets naturally. The photographs inside the hallway trembled harder. "We only kept what you were already willing to lose." Sarah understands the tragedy. For the first time, she saw the entity clearly. Not evil. Not innocent. A wound created by forgotten people. A living archive born from human neglect. The original child from 1921 had been erased so completely that something unnatural formed around the absence left behind. And ever since, it had survived by rescuing forgotten people in the only way it understood, by trapping them forever. The crowd keeps remembering. Sarah raised the megaphone again. "Say their names." At first, only a few voices joined her. Then dozens. Then hundreds. The entire street began repeating names together. "Mariam. Aham. Adil. Sana." The hallway screamed, because collective memory was destabilizing it faster than it could feed. The photographs begin opening. Frames along the endless corridor shattered one after another, and people started emerging. Not ghosts, not monsters. Confused victims stumbling back into reality, aging inconsistently, terrified, crying. Some had been missing for weeks, others for decades, and some returned only partially, flickering at the edges like unstable memories struggling to become real again. Aham returns. Near the center of the collapsing hallway, Sarah saw him, Detective Aham Khan. Alive, weak, disoriented, but real. Their eyes met across the collapsing corridor, and for one painful moment, both remembered everything. Every forgotten investigation, every erased memory, every year stolen from existence. The entity starts dying. The shifting figure staggered backward, its stolen faces flickering violently now. "Please." Thousands of voices whispered together, and suddenly Sarah understood the final horror. If the entity disappeared completely, every identity trapped inside it might vanish forever too. The choice: destroy the hallway completely, and risk erasing thousands permanently, or allow it to survive, ensuring the cycle of forgetting continued. Mariam's final words. Mariam stepped out from a broken photograph frame beside Sarah, weak but fully visible now. Then she looked at the dying entity sadly. "It was lonely first," she whispered. Silence spread across the street. Because she was right. Before it became a monster, it had simply been someone forgotten completely by the world. Sarah's decision. Sarah stepped toward the collapsing hallway slowly, then spoke directly to the entity. "You don't have to keep them trapped anymore." The shifting figure trembled violently. "We are all they have left." Sarah shook her head. "No." She looked toward the crowd outside, toward hundreds of people now speaking forgotten names aloud. "They have us." The end of the hallway. For the first time in over a century, the entity stopped fighting. The endless corridor began collapsing gently. Not violently, not angrily, like something finally allowing itself to rest. Photographs dissolved into drifting ash. Victims stepped free one by one. Memories returned to waiting families across the city. And at the center of the fading hallway, the original forgotten child finally became visible. Just a boy, young, terrified, alone, before dissolving quietly into light. Months later, the house on Gulmohar Street stood empty, scheduled for demolition. But outside its gates, someone kept leaving fresh flowers beneath a small plaque. The plaque contained hundreds of names, every recovered victim, every person nearly erased from existence. And at the very bottom, one final line: nobody disappears completely as long as someone still remembers. The greatest tragedy isn't death. It's how easily the world moves on afterward, unless someone chooses to remember the lost loudly enough to bring them home again. Story 2. At 2:14 a.m., the emergency dispatcher answered a call from a girl who had been dead for 8 years. At first, nobody realized it. The voice sounded terrified, young, breathing hard between sentences. "Please send someone," she whispered. "He found me again." The dispatcher immediately asked for an address. The girl answered instantly. "Apartment 17, Blackwood Heights." Then the line disconnected. The impossible problem. Blackwood Heights had burned down 8 years earlier. 43 people died in the fire, including 16-year-old Elena Moser, the same name attached to the phone number now appearing on the dispatcher's screen. A number disconnected since the night of the fire. Detective Ibrahim Noor. Detective Ibrahim Noor hated old cases, especially famous ones, and the Blackwood Heights fire was legendary. Official cause: electrical failure. Unofficial rumors: locked exits, missing residents, bodies found in the wrong apartments, and one disturbing fact nobody could explain: several victims were discovered holding phones that had melted in their hands, while emergency dispatch records showed no outgoing calls from the building that night. The dispatcher's breakdown: the woman who answered the call refused to leave work afterward, because she recognized the voice. "It was her," she whispered repeatedly. Ibrahim frowned. "You knew Elena?" The dispatcher nodded slowly, pale, shaking. "She called me the night she died too." Silence filled the room. "What?" The dispatcher looked up with terrified eyes. "She made the exact same call 8 years ago." The original recording. Dispatch archives still contained the fire night audio. Ibrahim listened carefully. Static hissed through the speakers. Sirens faint in the background. Then the girl's voice. He locked the stairwell. Heavy coughing. "Please hurry." Then one final sentence before the recording cut. He said nobody would leave this building alive. The official contradiction. The fire investigation never mentioned homicide. Never mentioned locked exits. Never mentioned a he. The disaster had been ruled accidental within 6 days. Too quickly. The burned tower still exists. Most of Blackwood Heights remained abandoned after the fire. The upper floors collapsed years ago. Windows boarded shut. But the structure still stood at the edge of the city, like something too damaged to fully disappear. And now, someone dead had apparently called from inside it. The phone number. Ibrahim traced the incoming call personally. The signal originated exactly where Elena's apartment once existed. 17th floor. Apartment 17. Impossible, because the entire floor had collapsed years earlier. The first visit. At sunrise. Ibrahim entered Blackwood Heights with 2 officers. The lobby smelled like wet ash even after all these years. Burn marks still covered the walls. Melted elevator doors frozen half open. And strangely, some emergency lights still flickered faintly despite the building having no power. The stairwell door. They reached the central stairwell quickly. And froze. The heavy fire exit door had chains wrapped around it from the outside. Old chains. Rust-covered. But clearly intentional. One officer looked uneasy. Who would lock a fire exit during an evacuation? Ibrahim didn't answer, because he already knew. Someone who wanted people trapped inside. The elevator still moves. As they prepared to continue upward, a metallic sound echoed through the building. Ding! The officers turned immediately. The burned elevator doors slowly slid open by themselves. Inside, everything was blackened from fire damage. Except for one thing. A cell phone sitting perfectly untouched on the elevator floor. Ringing. The caller ID. Ibrahim stepped closer carefully. The phone screen displayed. Incoming call, Elena Moza. The officers backed away immediately. But Ibrahim answered. Static filled the line first. Then breathing. Then Elena whispered. He's still here. The elevator lights flickered violently. And somewhere far above them, footsteps suddenly began moving across the ruined 17th floor. The call stayed connected. Elena's breathing grew faster. Terrified. Then she whispered one final sentence. Don't let him know you can hear me. The line disconnected instantly. At the exact same moment, all three men heard another sound echo through the burned building. A second cell phone ringing somewhere upstairs, followed by a man's voice calmly saying, I thought we buried those recordings. Some murders stay hidden because evidence disappears, but the worst ones stay hidden because the dead keep trying to call someone brave enough to listen. The second phone kept ringing upstairs. Slow, patient, not random, like whoever held it knew they were listening. The officers want to leave. Officer Rahim stepped backward immediately. Nope. The other officer nodded quickly. This building isn't safe. But Detective Ibrahim couldn't stop staring upward. Toward the collapsed 17th floor. Toward the ringing phone echoing through burned concrete. Because something about the voice bothered him. Not supernatural. Not ghostly. Familiar. The elevator shouldn't work. Ibrahim inspected the elevator panel carefully. No electricity. No active wiring. Most circuits melted years ago. And yet, the floor indicator suddenly flickered weakly. 17. Then the elevator doors began closing by themselves. The ride up. Against every survival instinct, Ibrahim stepped inside. The two officers cursed under their breath but followed. The elevator groaned violently as it ascended. Metal screeching. Cables straining overhead. And all around them, burn marks stretched upward like fingerprints along the walls. The voices in the shaft. Halfway up, they began hearing voices through the elevator walls. Screaming. Crying. People pounding on doors. Emergency dispatch recordings. Not echoes. Not imagination. Actual overlapping calls from the night of the fire. We're trapped. The stairwell won't open. Please answer. There's smoke everywhere. Then, one calm male voice among them. Nobody leaves. The elevator stops. The doors open suddenly. 17th floor. Or what remained of it. The impossible hallway. The corridor ahead looked untouched by time. Not burned. Not collapsed. Clean carpet. Working lights. Apartment doors intact. As though the fire had never happened there. Officer Rahim whispered. What the hell? Apartment 17. At the end of the hallway, Apartment 17 stood slightly open. And from inside, a phone continued ringing. Inside the apartment, the room looked frozen in time. Half-eaten food on the table. Television still glowing softly with static. A teenage girl's jacket hanging near the doorway. And on the kitchen counter, 3 cell phones sat side by side, all ringing simultaneously. The names on the screens. Each phone displayed the same caller ID. Elena Moza. The voicemails. Ibrahim pressed play on one device. Elena's terrified voice filled the apartment immediately. If somebody finds this, he locked us in. Heavy coughing interrupted her. People are trying to break the windows. A loud banging sound. Screaming. Then a man's voice in the background. Stop recording. The message cut abruptly. The burn marks return. Suddenly, the apartment flickered. For one brief second, the room transformed. Walls blackened. Ceiling collapsing. Smoke everywhere. Burning people pounding on the front door. Then the image snapped back to normal. Officer Rahim stumbled backward in horror. The fire. He whispered. It's still happening here. The timeline problem. Ibrahim finally understood the impossible truth. Some part of the 17th floor hadn't fully moved on from the night of the fire. Like trauma itself had become trapped inside the building. Repeating. Looping. The fourth phone. A fourth cell phone suddenly began vibrating beneath the couch. Ibrahim pulled it out slowly. Unlike the others, this one displayed a current timestamp. Today's date. Incoming voicemail received. 2:14 a.m. The exact time Elena's new emergency call came in. The new recording. Hands shaking slightly. Ibrahim pressed play. Elena sounded older now. More exhausted. Not like a teenager anymore. If you're hearing this, it means the fire started again. The detective froze. Because that recording was impossible. Elena died at 16. 8 years ago. The message continues. Static crackled violently behind her voice. He won't let us leave. Then softer. Every time someone gets close to the truth. A pause. The building burns again. The first body. Officer Rahim suddenly shouted from the hallway. Ibrahim rushed outside immediately. A corpse lay near the elevator doors. Fresh. Not burned. Not decomposed. A maintenance worker uniform. Security badge attached. Time of death couldn't have been more than a few hours earlier. But the ID card showed something impossible. Building inspector, missing since fire night. 8 years ago. The body opens its eyes. The cops suddenly inhaled sharply. All 3 officers jumped backward. The dead inspector stared directly at Ibrahim, terrified, and whispered, "He's still locking the doors." Then the body burst violently into flames. The entire hallway lights turned red instantly. And throughout the restored 17th floor, every apartment door slammed shut at the same time, locks clicking automatically. Then smoke began slowly filling the corridor again. As hidden speakers somewhere inside the building calmly announced, "Emergency lockdown initiated." Most killers hide evidence after the crime, but the truly horrifying ones create places where the crime itself never fully stops happening at all. Smoke flooded the hallway within seconds. Thick, black, impossible to breathe. Officer Rahim slammed against the nearest apartment door. Locked. The second officer tried the stairwell. Chains still wrapped around it from the outside, exactly like the night of the fire. And suddenly, the 17th floor no longer looked restored. The illusion was collapsing. The fire returns. Wallpaper blackened before their eyes. Lights burst overhead. Heat rolled through the corridor in violent waves. Apartment doors began rattling from the inside. People screaming behind them. Not recordings. Not echoes. Alive. The building is replaying the murders. Ibrahim realized the horrifying truth too late. They weren't investigating the fire anymore. They were trapped inside it. The figure in the smoke. At the far end of the corridor, someone appeared through the smoke. A man walking calmly toward them, completely untouched by the flames. Dark coat, burned skin along one side of his face, hands clasped behind his back, and every apartment door stopped shaking the moment he appeared. Like the building itself recognized him. Officer Rahim sees him clearly. Rahim's face drained of color instantly. "No," he whispered. Ibrahim turned sharply. "You know him." Rahim backed away slowly. "That's impossible." The fire chief. The approaching man matched old photographs perfectly. Fire Chief Nadim Qureshi. Officially dead for 8 years. Body recovered inside Blackwood Heights during the original disaster. Declared a hero. But heroes don't lock fire exits. The figure stopped several feet away, smoke curling around him unnaturally. Then he spoke calmly. "You shouldn't have answered the phone." The voice matches the recordings. Ibrahim felt cold immediately. The calm voice from Elena's voicemail. The one saying, "Nobody leaves." Same man. The dead fire chief smiles. Nadim's burned face twitched slightly. Almost a smile. "You were supposed to forget this building." Behind him, the hallway fire intensified violently. Screams echoed through the apartments. Hands slammed desperately against locked doors. The secret the city buried. Ibrahim forced himself to speak. "You trapped them here." The dead chief tilted his head slowly. "No." A pause. "I contained them." The meaning changes everything. The smoke thickened further. And now, figures were moving inside it. Not victims. Shapes. Tall. Distorted. Watching from inside the burning apartments. The other things in the fire. Officer Rahim stared in horror. "What are those?" Nadim finally looked toward the shifting shapes. And for the first time, fear crossed his burned face. The real story of the fire. 8 years earlier, Blackwood Heights wasn't evacuated immediately, because residents on the upper floors reported impossible things before the blaze spread. People disappearing inside smoke-filled rooms. Voices coming from melted walls. figures moving through flames without burning. Then emergency responders began vanishing too. The chief made a choice. Nadim looked directly at Ibrahim. The fire wasn't the disaster. The hallway lights flickered violently. The fire was the solution. The building groans. Somewhere deep below them, metal screamed loudly, like the entire tower was shifting beneath its own weight. And the figures inside the smoke moved closer. The victims are still here. Apartment doors suddenly burst open one by one. Burned residents stumbled into the hallway. Skin charred, clothing melted, eyes wide with endless terror. But they weren't attacking. They were running from something behind them. Elena appears. At the far apartment doorway, a teenage girl emerged from the smoke. Elena Moser, exactly 16 years old, frozen permanently on the night she died. She looked directly at Ibrahim, terrified, then screamed, "Don't let them out." The smoke figures react. The distorted shapes inside the fire suddenly stopped moving, slowly turning toward Elena, toward Ibrahim, toward the living. The dead fire chief panics. For the first time, Nadim lost composure completely. "They noticed you," he whispered. The smoke darkened unnaturally fast, and something enormous shifted inside it. The original emergency call. Ibrahim suddenly understood why Elena kept calling emergency dispatch. Not to escape, to warn people away. The stairwell unlocks. Behind them, the chain stairwell door suddenly burst open. Fresh cold air rushed into the corridor. An escape route. But Elena shook her head violently. Too late. The smoke above them split apart slowly, and a massive silhouette unfolded inside the burning hallway ceiling. Far too large to fit inside the building. Made entirely from moving black smoke and human-shaped outlines twisting together endlessly. Then dozens of voices whispered from inside it simultaneously. The doors are opening again. The fire alarms finally activated throughout the tower, and somewhere below, elevator cables began moving upward toward them. Some buildings burn because of accidents, but the worst ones are set on fire by people who discover that something inside deserves to be buried beneath flames forever. The stairwell door stood open behind them, cold air pouring upward. Escape. But nobody moved, because the thing inside the smoke had started descending from the ceiling. Slowly, deliberately, not falling, crawling, the shape inside the fire. Its body wasn't solid. Thousands of human silhouettes twisted together inside black smoke. Faces appearing briefly, screaming, then dissolving again. Arms stretched from impossible angles. Hands pressed outward from within the smoke mass like trapped victims trying to escape. And all of them whispered together. "We remember burning." Nadim draws his weapon. The dead fire chief pulled an old revolver from inside his coat. Not at Ibrahim. At the creature. "You were never supposed to wake up again," he whispered. "The gun does nothing." He fired 3 times. The bullets vanished into the smoke mass silently. No reaction. No damage. Only more whispering. The real victims. Elena grabbed Ibrahim's wrist hard. "They're inside it," she whispered desperately. "What?" Her eyes filled with tears. The missing residents. The ones never found. Officially, 43 bodies were recovered after the fire, but 17 residents were never located. Authorities assumed their remains had been destroyed in the collapse. They were wrong. The smoke remembers them. Faces surfaced inside the creature briefly. A crying woman. A little boy. A burned security guard. All trapped. All conscious. Like the thing had absorbed them into itself during the fire. The truth about the locked exits. Ibrahim turned sharply toward Nadim. "You trapped people in here with that thing." The dead chief's burned face tightened painfully. "I trapped it in here with them." Silence. Then quieter. There wasn't time. The first discovery 8 years ago. During the original fire, residents on the 17th floor reported impossible structural changes. Hallways moving. Apartments appearing where none existed. Voices inside smoke-filled walls. Then emergency crews discovered something impossible above the 17th floor. A flaw that didn't exist on the building blueprints. Floor 18. Blackwood Heights officially had only 17 floors. But during the fire, elevators repeatedly stopped at floor 18, a level nobody could access manually. The missing firefighters. 3 firefighters entered the non-existent floor during evacuation attempts. None returned, but radio recordings survived. The final transmission. Nadim's hands trembled slightly now. They kept screaming through the radios afterward, he whispered. The smoke creature pulsed violently nearby, even after they were gone. The elevator arrives. Ding! The burned elevator doors slid open behind them again. This time, the floor indicator displayed 18. The impossible interior. Inside the elevator, the walls were no longer burned. They looked wet, organic, almost breathing, and dozens of fingerprints covered the interior walls from the inside, like people had desperately tried clawing their way out. Elena refuses to enter. No, she whispered immediately. Fear flooded her face worse than before. That's where it lives. The creature moves closer. The smoke mass crawled further down the hallway ceiling. Apartment walls warped around it unnaturally. And now, the trapped faces inside it were clearer, begging silently, screaming silently, still alive somehow after 8 years. The building is feeding it. Ibrahim noticed something horrifying. The fire wasn't consuming the building. The building was sustaining the creature. Every repeating emergency call, every trapped memory, every replayed death. Blackwood Heights had become a machine preserving the disaster indefinitely. Nadim finally confesses. The dead chief lowered his weapon slowly. Defeated. We tried to seal floor 18 during construction, he admitted. Ibrahim stared at him. What is it? Nadim looked toward the elevator with genuine terror. We never found out. Before the building opened, construction workers disappeared before Blackwood Heights was even completed. Elevators moving by themselves. New hallways appearing overnight. Workers hearing voices behind unfinished walls. Then floor 18 appeared for the first time. And after that, people started vanishing permanently. The fire was deliberate. Nadim finally said the thing nobody wanted true. I started the fire. The hallway fell silent except for crackling flames. I thought burning the tower would bury it. But fire made it stronger. The creature pulsed violently at those words. Almost pleased. Because fear, pain, death, memory, all became fuel. The elevator doors stay open. Floor indicator still glowing. 18. Waiting. And from somewhere deep inside the elevator shaft, dozens of emergency dispatch phones started ringing simultaneously. The smoke creature slowly turned all its shifting faces toward Ibrahim. Then one face stabilized fully for the first time. A firefighter. Young. Terrified. And through crack-burned lips, he whispered directly to Ibrahim. Please don't let it keep building upward. Then the elevator suddenly lurched higher by itself. Past the ruined roof. Past any real floor. Ascending toward somewhere the building should never have been able to reach. Most haunted places contain the dead, but the truly dangerous ones are still actively creating more of them. The elevator kept rising long after the building should have ended. Past the roof. Past open air. Past logic. The floor indicator continued changing. 19. 20. 21. Even though Blackwood Heights officially had only 17 floors. Inside the elevator, the walls pulsed slowly now. Wet. Breathing. And beneath the metal, something moved. Human shapes pressing outward from inside the walls like bodies trapped beneath skin. Officer Rahim backed into the corner trembling. We need to get out. Nobody answered. Because the elevator had no buttons anymore. Only one glowing number remained. 18. The emergency calls continue. Dozens of phones hidden somewhere inside the elevator began ringing simultaneously. Different ringtones. Different decades. And one by one, voicemails started playing automatically. Please send help. We can't find the stairs. The smoke is talking. There's another floor above us. Then one final message. The building is getting taller. Elena remembers the truth. Elena stood perfectly still near the elevator doors. Face pale. I went there, she whispered. Ibrahim turned immediately. What? Her eyes filled with tears. Before the fire. The hidden gathering. Weeks before the disaster. Residents from upper floors reported secret meetings happening late at night. Strangers entering elevators. Disappearing for hours. Returning confused. Some came back terrified. Others came back changed. The residents who stopped sleeping. Elena's breathing quickened. They said the building showed them things. The elevator groaned loudly around them. Versions of people who weren't really there. Rooms that remembered conversations. Hallways that moved after midnight. The elevator finally stops. Ding! The doors opened slowly. And the world outside was wrong. Floor 18. Not burned. Not ruined. Perfect. A luxury hotel corridor stretched endlessly ahead. Clean carpet. Golden lighting. Soft music playing somewhere distant. But there were no windows. No visible walls at the far end. The hallway simply continued forever. The impossible architecture. Every few seconds, the corridor subtly rearranged itself. Doors appearing where none existed before. Hallways branching unnaturally. Corners changing shape. Like the floor itself was alive. The nameplates. Each apartment door contained a brass plaque. Not room numbers. Names. Thousands of names. Some recent. Some decades old. And among them, Ibrahim saw Elena Moza. Then further down, Fire Chief Nadim Qureshi. Then, Detective Ibrahim Noor. The building already knows him. Ibrahim stepped backward immediately. No. But his nameplate slowly appeared more clearly. Freshly engraved. Like the floor had been expecting him. The residence of floor 18. A nearby apartment door opened softly. A woman stepped into the hallway calmly. Burned skin covered half her face. But she moved normally. Spoke normally. New arrivals. She asked politely. Officer Rahim nearly collapsed in fear. Because the woman matched a victim photo from the original fire exactly. Declared dead 8 years ago. The dead still live here. More doors opened. Children. Old men. Families. All victims from Blackwood Heights. All supposedly dead. Yet walking peacefully through the impossible hallway. The horrifying truth. They weren't ghosts. They were residents. Nadim understands too late. The dead fire chief looked horrified. No. He whispered. I buried you. The burned woman smiled faintly. No, she corrected softly. You moved us upstairs. The purpose of floor 18. The building didn't consume people. Not exactly. It relocated them. Floor 18 existed outside ordinary reality. A growing structure built from trapped memories and unfinished deaths. And every disaster, every fire, every disappearance, expanded it further. The hallway has no end. Ibrahim walked forward cautiously. The corridor stretched infinitely in both directions now. And everywhere, doors, names, lives suspended outside reality. The worst discovery. Inside one open apartment, Ibrahim saw a family eating dinner calmly, laughing softly. But every few seconds, their bodies burned briefly before resetting again. Like the moment of death replayed endlessly beneath the surface. They don't know they are dead. Elena whispered. They forget sometimes. Silence. The floor helps them forget. The building is merciful. That was the most horrifying part. Floor 18 wasn't torturing its victims intentionally. It preserved them, comforted them, prevented them from fully dying. At the cost of trapping them forever. The thing at the center, at the far end of the endless corridor, something enormous moved behind the walls. The same smoke entity from below, but larger now. Far larger, as though the entire floor existed inside its body. The fire chief's secret. Nadim finally admitted the final truth. I didn't start the fire to destroy the building. His burned face trembled with shame. I started it to stop floor 18 from spreading. But it escaped anyway, because now, elevators across the city had started behaving strangely. Emergency calls from disconnected phones. Reports of impossible hallways. People entering buildings and never returning. Blackwood Heights wasn't isolated anymore. It was growing. The hallway lights dimmed softly, and every apartment door on floor 18 opened simultaneously. Thousands of dead residents stepped into the corridor together, then slowly turned toward Ibrahim as one. Not hostile, not angry, hungry, and from somewhere deep within the endless floor, a calm voice whispered through the walls. There is always room for more residents upstairs. Some places become graves after tragedy, but the worst places evolve into living worlds built entirely from people who were never allowed to leave them behind. The residents of floor 18 stared at Ibrahim in complete silence. Thousands of dead faces. Burned. Forgotten. Preserved. Then, all of them smiled at the exact same time. The hallway expands. The corridor groaned loudly beneath their feet. And somewhere far away, new doors began appearing along the endless walls. Fresh brass nameplates engraving themselves automatically. Officer Rahim looked at one forming near him, then froze. The name slowly calved into the metal red. Officer Rahim Khan. The floor is preparing rooms. The building already knew who would die next. The dead residents begin speaking. A little girl stepped forward from the crowd. Half her face blackened from burns. "You should stay," she whispered softly. Another resident nodded. "It's safer upstairs." A burned old man smiled weakly. "You stop hurting after a while." The psychological trap. Ibrahim realized the true horror immediately. Floor 18 didn't imprison people with violence. It seduced them. No aging. No grief. No loneliness. No final death. Only endless repetition inside comforting illusion. Elena starts forgetting reality. Elena suddenly frowned slightly. "What floor did I live on again?" she whispered. Then quieter. "What year is this?" The longer victims remained upstairs. The more their real memories deteriorated. Eventually, they stopped trying to leave at all. The fire chief sees his wife. Further down the corridor, Nadim suddenly stopped moving. A woman stood inside an apartment doorway ahead. Alive. Smiling sadly. His wife. Officially killed during the original fire. "Nadia," he whispered. The woman stepped closer slowly. "You've been alone a long time," she said gently. "The floor uses love too." Ibrahim immediately understood. Floor 18 adapted itself to each victim. Regret. Loss. Guilt. Loneliness. It offered people the one thing reality no longer could. Nadim almost stays. The dead fire chief moved toward his wife shakily, tears forming in his burned eyes. Because for him, this place wasn't horror anymore. It was forgiveness. The endless residence. The hallway shifted again, expanding wider, longer, and now Ibrahim noticed something worse. Many residents didn't wear burn marks at all. Some looked recent. Modern clothing. Modern phones. People who disappeared years after the original fire. The spread has already started. Blackwood Heights wasn't containing floor 18 anymore. It was feeding it. Every unexplained disappearance in the city. Every person who vanished inside elevators. Every emergency call from empty buildings. The floor was expanding beyond the tower now. The first new outbreak. Officer Rahim's radio suddenly crackled violently. Dispatch screaming through static. Units respond immediately. Residential building on West Aham Street. Residents trapped above the 12th floor. Static swallowed the transmission briefly. Then, the elevators won't stop going up. Ibrahim feels real fear. Not for himself. For the city. Because he finally understood what floor 18 truly was. Not a haunting. Not a curse. An infection. The building learns cities. The enormous smoke entity behind the walls shifted again, and the corridor expanded violently outward for several seconds, as if new sections were actively constructing themselves somewhere beyond reality. More rooms, more residents, more floors. The missing firefighters return. Suddenly, 3 figures emerged from the far hallway. Firefighters, uniforms scorched, faces exhausted. The missing rescue crew from 8 years earlier. Still alive. Barely. One of them grabbed Ibrahim immediately. "You have to burn the access points," he whispered desperately. "What access points?" The firefighter looked toward the elevators. All elevators. The core truth. Floor 18 didn't exist physically. Elevators acted like gateways, threshold spaces, moving between layers of reality. And every building with enough tragedy, enough emotional residue, enough death, risked growing new floors too. The dead city blueprint. One firefighter handed Ibrahim a partially burned blueprint. Not of Blackwood Heights, of the entire city. Red circles marked dozens of buildings. Hospitals, hotels, apartment towers, office complexes, all connected by elevator shafts, all already showing signs of infection. The residents noticed the escape plan. The hallway suddenly became silent again. Thousands of dead residents staring at them motionlessly. The little burned girl tilted her head slowly. then whispered, "You're trying to leave." The hallway locks down. Instantly, every elevator door slammed shut throughout floor 18. The lights turned deep red, and overhead speakers calmly announced, "New residents attempting an authorized exit." The endless hallway began changing shape violently, walls stretching, floors splitting apart, ceilings moving higher, and far below them, through cracks forming in the floor, Ibrahim saw something horrifying. Not darkness, a second city, an enormous impossible city beneath reality itself, made entirely from endless buildings connected by infinite elevators, and everywhere inside it, millions of lights flickering behind apartment windows filled with trapped people who no longer remembered there had ever been another world above them. The most terrifying prisons aren't the ones built to keep people inside. They're the ones that slowly become large enough to replace the entire world outside them instead. The floor beneath Ibrahim cracked wider, and through the widening gap, the hidden city below became clearer. Infinite towers, infinite windows, infinite elevators moving endlessly through darkness. Like humanity had been secretly building a second civilization beneath reality itself. The residents start singing, all around floor 18. The dead residents began humming softly together. A low, synchronized melody. Gentle, almost comforting. But the sound made Ibrahim's chest tighten with dread, because the hallway itself started expanding in rhythm with the song. The building feeds on surrender. One firefighter grabbed Ibrahim harder. "Don't listen too long," he whispered. His eyes looked exhausted beyond human limits. "The song helps people stop wanting to leave." The firefighters who stayed too long. The 3 missing firefighters looked half erased, like reality no longer fully recognized them. Their uniforms flickered occasionally between burned and untouched. One of them stared blankly at the residents for several seconds before whispering, "I can't remember my daughter's face anymore." The cost of survival. The firefighters had spent 8 years trapped between worlds, fighting to stay mentally alive. Not against monsters, against forgetting the world above. Nadim begins slipping. The dead fire chief still stood near his wife. But now, he looked uncertain, like he no longer remembered why he wanted to leave. Nadia touched his burned face gently. "You don't have to feel guilty here," she whispered. "Upstairs is where the pain lives." Floor 18 understands human weakness. That was its true intelligence. It didn't conquer through force. It studied loneliness, grief, regret, and built realities people stopped wanting to escape from. The emergency calls across the city. Officer Rahim's radio exploded with overlapping dispatch calls. Different addresses, different buildings, but all sharing the same phrases. "The elevator won't open. There's an extra floor." People disappeared upstairs. The hallways changed. The infection was accelerating. The buried city is expanding upward. The smoke entity behind the walls shifted violently. And suddenly, new skyscrapers began rising inside the hidden city below, constructing themselves in real time, each one connected to another missing building somewhere in the real world. The blueprint reveals the pattern. Ibrahim spread the burned city map across the floor. The marked buildings formed a terrifying shape. Not random locations. A network, like roots spreading beneath a city. Every connected elevator shaft feeding the same impossible underground world. The original discovery. One firefighter finally revealed the oldest secret. Blackwood Heights hadn't been the first infected building. Not even close. The oldest elevator, in 1971, workers demolishing an abandoned hotel discovered an elevator still functioning beneath the rubble. The elevator descended for nearly 40 minutes. When the doors reopened, only one worker returned. Completely insane. Repeating one sentence endlessly. The city below keeps growing. The buildings above are just entrances. Floor 18 wasn't a single location. It was one doorway into something vastly older. An expanding structure beneath human civilization itself. The missing people become architecture. The firefighter pointed toward the hidden city below. And Ibrahim noticed something horrifying. The buildings weren't made from concrete. Faces moved inside the walls. Human silhouettes twisted beneath streets. The buried city itself was constructed from absorbed people. Every forgotten resident becoming part of the expanding structure permanently. The elevator opens again. Ding! One elevator nearby slid open softly. Inside, not a room, a street, a living street from the buried city below. People walked there calmly beneath artificial lights, shopping, talking, living ordinary lives. But every single person occasionally flickered transparent, revealing burned skeletal forms beneath. The people below don't know. Elena stared in horror. They think they are alive. The firefighter nodded slowly. Most stop remembering eventually. The city replaces reality slowly. That was the final stage. Not simple death. Not disappearance. Replacement. Victims eventually accepted the buried city as normal reality, while memories of the real world faded completely. Ibrahim hears his own apartment. Then, from somewhere inside the open elevator, Ibrahim heard music. Familiar music. His apartment. His kitchen radio. He stepped closer unwillingly, and saw something impossible inside the buried city street. His own apartment building. Already downstairs. His building is infected too. People moved through the structure calmly. Neighbors he recognized. But above the entrance, a brass plaque slowly engraved itself into existence. New residents welcome. The firefighter's final warning. The firefighter pulled Ibrahim back hard. Once a building appears downstairs. His voice shook. It's already too late to save everyone inside. The residents stopped singing. Suddenly, the humming throughout floor 18 stopped completely. Total silence. Thousands of dead residents turned toward the far end of the corridor simultaneously, fear spreading across their faces. Even the trapped residents were afraid now. Something older approaches. The walls began pulsing violently, elevators dinging endlessly throughout the infinite hallway. And deep below, something enormous moved beneath the buried city itself. Far larger than buildings, far older than floor 18. All elevator screens across the corridor suddenly changed to the same message. Original resident ascending. Then every hallway light shut off at once. In the darkness, a single elevator began rising slowly toward them from somewhere far beneath the buried city. And through the tiny gap between its closing doors, Ibrahim briefly saw countless human hands pressing desperately against the walls inside, trying to keep something from getting out. Every nightmare humanity buries eventually grows large enough beneath the surface. And the oldest horrors are the ones even the trapped victims are terrified to see return. The elevator kept rising in total darkness. Slow. Heavy. Each passing second sounded wrong. Not mechanical movement. Breathing. Like the shaft itself had lungs. Nobody speaks. The dead residents along floor 18 stood completely still now. No humming. No smiling. Only fear. Even the smoke entity behind the walls retreated deeper into the structure. Whatever was ascending. Even the buried city feared it. The elevator arrives. Ding. The sound echoed endlessly through the infinite corridor. Then silence again. The elevator doors remained closed. But something inside moved. Heavy footsteps. Slow dragging sounds. And hundreds of faint whispers laid beneath them. The firefighters panic. One of the missing firefighters backed away immediately. No, he whispered. It found another way up. Ibrahim grabbed him. What is it? The firefighter looked close to breaking completely. The first resident. The doors open. The elevator slid apart a few inches. Darkness leaked out first. Not absence of light. Actual darkness. Something thick. Alive. Then the smell arrived. Wet concrete. Ash. Old hospital corridors. And beneath it, human decay. The thing inside. At first, Ibrahim couldn't understand what he was seeing, because the figure inside the elevator kept changing shape. Not transforming. Overlapping. Like multiple human bodies occupying the same space simultaneously. Faces emerging halfway through other faces. Arms bending wrong. Eyes opening beneath skin that didn't belong to them. And every shifting form wore clothing from different decades. The original resident steps out. It moved slowly into the corridor. Barefoot. Silent. The hallway lights dimmed around it automatically. And every apartment door on floor 18 locked itself. Not to trap people inside. To keep this thing out. The buried city stops moving. Far below. Through cracks in the floor. The impossible city froze completely. Traffic stopped. Elevators halted. Residents stared upward motionlessly. Like the entire underground world answered to the thing now standing before them. It speaks with thousands of voices. When it finally spoke, the sound came from every direction at once. Men, women, children, old voices, new voices, all layered together. The city has grown well. Nadim recognizes it. The dead fire chief stumbled backward in horror. No. Then quieter. You're the one they found beneath the hotel. The figure slowly turned toward him, and for one terrible moment, all its overlapping faces stopped shifting, becoming one person, a thin man in outdated clothing from the early 1900s. Then the faces began moving again. The oldest missing person. The firefighter whispered shakily. The first disappearance connected to the elevators happened in 1923. Construction workers vanished beneath an unfinished subway tunnel. Only one returned. And afterward, buildings near the tunnel started developing impossible extra floors. The first resident was human once. Just like the hallway entity before it, this thing had once been a person. But unlike the hallway creature, it hadn't preserved the forgotten. It had learned from them, absorbed them, expanded through them. The buried city's creator. The overlapping voices echoed softly through floor 18. Humanity builds upward. We build downward. The walls pulsed with each word. You bury loneliness beneath cities. We give it shape. It sees Ibrahim. Suddenly, all shifting faces turned toward Ibrahim simultaneously, and smiled. The city already chose him. A new apartment door appeared beside the corridor wall instantly. Freshly formed. The brass plaque engraved itself slowly. Detective Ibrahim Noor. The thing knows his grief. The original resident tilted its head slightly, and in a voice identical to Ibrahim's dead father, it whispered, "You still visit his grave every Thursday." Ibrahim froze completely. Because nobody here should know that. It reads emotional weight. The buried city didn't select victims randomly. It targeted unresolved grief, isolation, regret. People emotionally vulnerable enough to accept another reality if offered one. The residents start kneeling. All along floor 18. The dead residents slowly knelt before the original resident. Not worship, recognition, like pieces of a larger organism acknowledging its source. Elena refuses. Only Elena stayed standing, terrified but resisting. "You kept us here," she whispered. The overlapping figure looked at her almost gently. "No, you stayed because forgetting hurts less." The worst truth yet. And deep down, some part of Ibrahim realized it was right. Many trapped residents no longer wanted freedom, because freedom meant facing death, loss, reality. Floor 18 offered escape from all of it. The city begins expanding again. Far below, the buried city started moving once more. And now new buildings were appearing much faster. Entire neighborhoods constructing themselves beneath reality. Millions of windows lighting up simultaneously. The surface world starts changing. Officer Rahim's radio crackled weakly again. But the dispatch voice sounded wrong now. Distant. Distorted. Attention residents. Curfew remains active below level 14. Rahim stared at the radio in horror. Because that wasn't their city's emergency system anymore. It belonged to the buried city. Reality is overlapping. The underground world was no longer staying underground. It was beginning to replace the real city above. The original resident slowly raised one hand, and every elevator across the hidden city opened simultaneously. Thousands, millions, door after door sliding apart in darkness, inviting people downward. Then the overlapping figure looked directly at Ibrahim and whispered, "Eventually everyone comes downstairs. The lonely always do." Behind him, his own apartment building in the buried city switched on every light at once, and inside one upstairs window, Ibrahim saw himself standing there already, watching, waiting. The most dangerous monsters aren't the ones that drag people into darkness. They are the ones patient enough to build entire worlds, convincing humanity to walk there willingly on its own. The version of Ibrahim standing inside the buried city apartment smiled slowly, then raised one hand toward him, inviting him closer, and for one horrifying second, Ibrahim wanted to go, because the apartment looked warm, safe, normal. No death, no impossible elevators, no endless screaming hidden inside walls. Just home. The original resident notices. The shifting figure tilted its overlapping faces slightly, almost amused. You understand now. The buried city lights pulsed softly below them. People do not need to be forced downstairs. Another 1,000 elevator doors opened across the underground world. They only need to become tired of suffering upstairs. The real purpose of the buried city. Not destruction. Not invasion. Replacement. A second reality built specifically for emotionally exhausted people. A world where grief became architecture, loneliness became infrastructure, and regret became an endless city waiting beneath every elevator shaft. Surface reports collapse. Officer Rahim's radio screamed with overlapping emergency broadcasts. Entire apartment block missing. Hospital elevators descending below foundation level. People returning home to buildings that no longer exist. Then another voice cut through the static. Do not enter elevators alone. The surface world is changing fast. Ibrahim suddenly realized the horrifying scale. The buried city wasn't simply spreading physically. It was rewriting perception. People upstairs were slowly forgetting which version of reality had come first. Nadim finally understands his failure. The dead fire chief stared into the endless city below. Broken. The fire didn't stop it. He whispered. The original resident looked toward him calmly. Pain accelerates construction. Silence filled the corridor. Every tragedy, every disaster, every building filled with grief, fed the buried city further. Blackwood Heights was only a doorway. Not the origin, not the center, just one entrance among thousands now spreading beneath civilization. The firefighters reveal the final stage. One missing firefighter grabbed Ibrahim urgently. When enough people accept the buried city. His body flickered violently, almost transparent now. The surface starts disappearing completely. Entire places have already been lost. The firefighter pointed toward the endless underground skyline, and Ibrahim noticed impossible landmarks buried below. Entire neighborhoods from missing person cases, abandoned subway systems, demolished hospitals, hotels destroyed decades ago. All still existing downstairs. Preserved. Occupied. Growing. The residents don't know they are trapped. That was the cruelest part. Most people below genuinely believe they still lived normal lives. The buried city slowly rewrote memory until victims accepted it as reality. Birthdays. Jobs. Families. Daily routines. All simulated endlessly beneath the world above. Elena starts fading. Elena suddenly grabbed her head painfully. I can't remember my mother's face, she whispered. The buried city was reclaiming her again. Every memory of the real world weakened the longer victims stayed below. Ibrahim's apartment door opens. Inside the buried city version of his building, his apartment door slowly opened, warm light spilling outward, and someone stepped into the doorway. His father, dead for 15 years, exactly as Ibrahim remembered him. Smiling gently. Come home, he said softly. The buried city learns human hearts. It didn't simply trap people physically. It reconstructed emotional need perfectly. Whatever loss a person carried deepest. The city rebuilt it downstairs. Officer Rahim begins walking forward. Rahim moved toward the elevator slowly. Trance-like. My brother's down there. He whispered, because his brother had vanished 2 years earlier in an unexplained subway incident. The original resident watches calmly. No violence. No threats. It didn't need them. Human grief pulled people downward willingly. The truth about the original resident. Ibrahim finally asked the question haunting him. What are you really? The overlapping faces shifted endlessly, then answered softly. The first person who chose not to return upstairs. The beginning of everything. A lonely man lost beneath underground construction tunnels in 1923. Trapped. Forgotten. And eventually offered a second reality by whatever intelligence existed beneath the city. But instead of escaping, he stayed, then helped build more. The intelligence beneath it all. Because the original resident wasn't truly the creator, only the first recruit. Something older still lived beneath the buried city itself. Something using human loneliness as raw material. The ground starts opening. The floor of floor 18 cracked violently. And deep below, something massive moved beneath the underground skyline. Not a creature, not a person, A structure, an impossibly enormous shape buried beneath both cities. Like the buried city itself was only the outer layer of something far larger still growing underground. The final emergency broadcast. Every radio on floor 18 activated simultaneously. A calm female voice spoke across all frequencies. Attention all residents. Surface transition has begun. The buried city lights brightened below. Please proceed downstairs in an orderly manner. Every elevator across floor 18 opened at once. Inside each one, a different version of comfort waited. Lost loved ones, childhood homes, dead families, perfect lives rebuilt from memory. And one by one, some residents began willingly stepping inside, returning downstairs permanently. Then Ibrahim looked toward his father again, and realized with horror. He could no longer remember whether his father's real funeral had actually happened upstairs, or if that memory had already been rewritten too. The scariest lies are not the ones people are forced to believe. They're the ones carefully designed to feel kinder than reality itself. The elevators waited open across floor 18. Silent invitations into the buried city below. Inside each elevator, someone's deepest grief stood waiting. A dead child, a lost husband, a forgotten mother, a version of life untouched by tragedy, and the residents kept stepping inside willingly. Officer Rahim goes downstairs. Rahim stared into one elevator crying openly. His missing brother stood inside smiling softly. Alive, untouched. I looked everywhere for you, Rahim whispered. His brother nodded gently. You can stop searching now. Then Rahim stepped into the elevator. The doors closed immediately, and the floor indicator descended endlessly. 18, 19, 20, 21, until the numbers vanished completely. The buried city expands upward. Below the cracks in floor 18, the impossible underground skyline stretched further than ever. Entire sections of the real city had already appeared downstairs. Schools, hospitals, police stations, apartment blocks, all reconstructed beneath reality itself. And above, Ibrahim realized something horrifying. The surface city had grown quieter. Too quiet, because people upstairs were disappearing faster now. The final truth about the surface. The buried city didn't replace reality violently. It inherited people gradually, one lonely person at a time, one grieving mind at a time, until eventually, the world above became emptier than the one below. Elena begins vanishing. Elena's body flickered badly now, parts of her becoming transparent. Because she had died 8 years earlier, the buried city was the only thing still preserving her existence. If this place collapses, she whispered softly, I disappear too. The impossible choice returns. Destroy the buried city, and countless trapped souls might vanish permanently. Allow it to survive, and eventually all humanity would descend willingly into it. The original resident approaches Ibrahim. The overlapping figure walked closer slowly. Now its faces moved less violently. More human, more tired. You think this is evil? Thousands of voices whispered together. The hidden city lights flickered below them. But look at your world upstairs. Another step closer. People die alone there. Silence. They are forgotten there. The cruel logic. And once again, part of the horror came from truth. The buried city existed because human loneliness existed first. It grew from abandonment, isolation, unresolved grief. Humanity built the foundation for it themselves. The thing beneath the city wakes. Suddenly, the entire structure beneath reality shook violently. Buildings downstairs bending unnaturally, elevators jerking in place, and deep below the buried skyline, something massive finally started rising. Not a creature, a heart, an impossibly enormous living structure pulsing beneath the underground world. Veins spread outward through elevator shafts like roots beneath civilization. The source of everything. The buried city wasn't the organism. It was a symptom. The real entity lived beneath it all, feeding on human emotional suffering for over a century, using grief to construct realities, using loneliness to lure victims downward. The firefighters understand first. One missing firefighter stared downward in horror. It's almost fully awake. The living heart below pulsed harder, and all across floor 18. Apartment walls began growing like flesh. The original resident finally breaks. For the first time, fear crossed the overlapping figures' shifting faces, because even he had only been a servant, a caretaker helping feed something much older. The buried city starts consuming him too. The original resident's body began merging into the hallway walls, faces stretching, skin dissolving into architecture. He looked toward Ibrahim desperately now. It never intended to stop growing. The truth about the dead, the trapped residents, were never truly preserved, only copied, emotional imprints reconstructed from memory and grief. The real people had likely died long ago, and the buried city simply kept building convincing versions to lure more victims downstairs. Elena realizes the truth. Tears filled her eyes. "My mother," she whispered. The memory of her mother downstairs had never been real, only bait. Ibrahim makes the final decision. He looked across floor 18, at the endless fake comforts, at the grieving residents, at the expanding city beneath reality, and finally understood. The buried city survived because humanity preferred comforting lies over painful truth. So long as people willingly descended, it would continue growing forever. The fire returns. Nadim stepped beside Ibrahim silently, then handed him the old revolver. "One fire failed," the dead chief whispered. A pause. "Maybe a bigger one won't." The elevator core. At the center of floor 18, a massive elevator shaft stretched downward endlessly into the living heart below. Veins pulsed along its walls, the central nervous system connecting every infected building in the city. Destroy the shaft, and perhaps the buried city would collapse entirely. The final goodbye. Elena smiled sadly at Ibrahim. "If I disappear," she whispered, "at least I won't be trapped anymore." Then she stepped backward slowly toward the collapsing hallway, beginning to fade. Final scene. Ibrahim fired the revolver directly into the exposed living veins surrounding the central shaft. The entire buried city screamed. Not mechanically, not structurally, biologically. The living heart below convulsed violently. Elevators across the underground world crashing simultaneously. Buildings collapsing inward. And for one brief moment, millions of trapped residents looked upward together as cracks of real sunlight finally pierced the buried city ceiling for the first time in over a century. Then everything began burning. 6 months later, Blackwood Heights no longer existed. The entire structure collapsed into a crater during the final fire. Officials blamed underground gas explosions. Most records vanished quietly afterward. But strange reports still continued across the country sometimes. Elevators stopping at impossible floors. Phones ringing from demolished buildings. Missing people later claiming they spent years living in places that officially never existed. And occasionally, late at night, certain elevator cameras captured one impossible detail. For a single frame between floors, the doors sometimes opened briefly onto a vast underground city filled with endless lights stretching beneath the earth forever. The darkest prisons are never built from walls alone. They are built from human grief powerful enough to create entire worlds people choose over reality itself.